And Chris, how you doing?
Oh, excellent. I'm okay. How about you?
I'm doing good. How you keeping out in these strange and difficult times?
Oh my. I count my blessings. I think we're handling it okay, as good as you could hope for. We're staying isolated. How
Yeah.
about you?
Oh, we're staying isolated as well. It's not as bad as Nova Scotia. And where are you at?
Nashville.
I'm sure that's not too good there.
It's kind of it's scary, but I think it's scary everywhere, isn't it? It's just all over the world. The bad thing about Nashville is there was a tornado just a week before the pandemic really hit, and man, some people, their lives are just torn apart. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I seen that tornado footage. It was not too good.
No, we were lucky. We live about 20 miles north of there.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about some music to cheer up the
Yeah,
audience that are
yeah.
listening and all that stuff. Burrito Brothers got a new album and it's sounding great, and you guys are all sounding
Thank
great.
you.
How's it all
Thank you
doing?
very much.
You're welcome.
Also, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate that.
Hey, not a problem. How was it recording this album?
It went really, really smoothly. Probably the smoothest of any we've done, any I've done in my entire career. It feels as though we arrived at just the right chemistry, the right rapport amongst the musicians. You probably know, anybody who's followed the history of the Burrito Brothers or looked it up on, online, Wikipedia or something, would know that the band just has continually had personnel, had musicians change over the years, and no two albums in a row have the very same lineup of people. It's amazing. But after that last album we made a couple years ago, there was another little shift, and the guy who was playing drums and the studio where we recorded was his place. He wasn't into doing it again because he just belabored over it. He spent something like 2.5 years nitpicking on getting that album just right, and I told him that I'd like to be more efficient and do another one quicker, and that just wasn't his way of working, and he bailed out of the group. So once again, there's a personnel change, except that this one was the easiest one to solve because we just asked Peter Young to come back into the band, and he was happy to do so. So it wasn't like having a new guy. We all knew each other very well, and it felt like we were all ready to just interact comfortably, and that's what happened.
Well, glad that came out after all. I mean, to take too much time to release an album or working on it, it's not good even for the fans.
Yeah, I think you're right, exactly right. I think that it felt like we had finished all the recording almost a year before it was considered finished by the mixing and the rest of the production, the mastering and stuff. He just, I think, got a little too obsessive about it. And I think the heart of the departure of that guy, John Sturdivant, whose studio we were in, and he was the drummer, was that was his way of working, and we had decided that we would like to try to get an album done in the year 2019, because that's the 50th year anniversary of the very first Flying Burrito Brothers album, and it just seemed an appropriate idea to go for a 50th anniversary piece of work. And this would have been about a year ago, maybe a little more than that, the beginning of 2019, and I think that just sort of startled John because he had only just finally finished the previous album, another one, and try to knock it out. Try not to belabor it, and all of that just wasn't his way of thinking. So we're all. It wasn't unfriendly. He bowed out, and we didn't mind, and we were very happy to have Peter Young back in, and we got right to work on making this album, and I believe it's the best one we've done.
And the country rock scene has seemed to be continuing strong, and it's not slowing down. What's your take on that? You know, the country rock scene, is it getting even more popular than ever?
Oh, I didn't think so. I probably am a little bit outside the loop. I think that it's almost a dying breed. We feel that we're doing something really special and important in keeping this legacy of the Burrito Brothers alive. It just seems so valuable and worthwhile to carry forward and remember people like Graham Parsons and Chris Hillman and Sneaky Pete and carry it forward, because if somebody's not doing that, it runs a risk of getting less and less exposed, and I don't know if it would ever really be forgotten, but something along those lines. And I think my musical taste, my idea of what I would probably call country rock, I think the Burrito Brothers are a little more of a rock group than a country group, because it's very inventive and progressive and even sometimes psychedelic, and it just probably owes a little more to the sensibilities of Rock Band, even though it has pedal steel guitar and some country flavor to the sound. So I'm not sure if country rock is quite the right term. I don't know if there is a right term. I might just simply call it rock. But I'm guessing when you say that country rock is doing fine, you kind of mean the country groups who rock, who kind of have a rock and roll vibe to them. And I don't exactly see us as quite that. We're more of a rock group with a country element to it, and certainly a experimental, inventive nature, a desire to think outside the simple ways and try to bring artistry into the picture as much as possible.
Could be an experimental psychedelic country rock band in a sense then.
Yeah, maybe so. Graham Parsons once came up with the idea of calling it cosmic American music, but that's kind of funny sounding, and I don't know if that's that descriptive. It's hard to give music a label.
Even when you go back in, let's say, in the late 60s with the Flying Burrito Brothers and a lot of the groups similar, it all had a psychedelic rock type taste into it to start off with. So it's all psychedelic rock that just, progressively
I think
made
so.
it.
They were part of the rock crowd, the long-haired hippie crowd, for lack of a better word for it, who dug country music, and they felt like it was better than most young rock fans knew, and so they wanted to broaden the palette. They wanted to turn kids like what I was back then on to sensibilities of country music. There were a bunch of them. There was like Pure Prairie League and Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and Poco, and the list goes on. There were these various bands and New Riders of the Purple Sage, even Grateful Dead for that matter. The Byrds, clearly, even the Monkees. There were cool, hip, young rock groups who included country music in their mix, in their hybrid.
And that we're not afraid to try new things.
Yeah. But none of those were actually marketed on country radio. Those were sold to the hippies. Those were sold to the rock crowd. In fact, obviously the Rolling Stones were turned on by it. Along about 1968, you could hear the country and more American roots-based sounds enter their music.
True.
Yeah.
And Chris, let's say for music videos and stuff like that, in the near future, will we see some sort of promo video? For
Well,
YouTube?
I hope so. We have one, and it could be the model for what we're able to do right now. We have one for the song "Acrostic," and it's a conceptual video. It's not a performance video of us, and we aren't the actors in it. We're not in it on screen. It's our music playing with scenes that apply to what the lyrics are talking about. So it's conceptual video, and that's new. It's to the song on this album, "Acrostic." Since we can't go anywhere, since everybody's isolated, it's not really possible to do anything much different from that, unless we made collages out of pre-existing footage as live. But we played a really special concert last November, mid-November of last year, that was a Graham Parsons festival in Nashville. The guy, Will James, who organizes it, calls it Graham National, and it's on every year toward the end of the year. And last year was the 50th anniversary of the classic first Flying Burrito Brothers album, The Gilded Palace of Sin. And we were asked, since we're the Burrito Brothers, to perform it in its entirety, which was quite an interesting thing to tackle and an honor, but a little strange when you think we had just completed this wonderful album that we're so proud of and feel so good about. And rather than doing our own new material, we were doing the 50-year-old material of a group that wasn't exactly the same people. Yeah. But like I say, it was truly an honor, and I think we were the right band for the job, because so many years have transpired. And you can watch that show in its entirety on our website. It's www.theburritobrothers.net.
Okay.
So that's the most recent. As to the question about do we have video, there's that concert, and then there's the Acrostic video.
Where you see the continuity of the band, in the next 10 years? Will you guys keep on doing this?
Oh, I sure hope so. We've felt that there's a quote from Graham Parsons that's just been very, very special to us, in which he was asked in 1973, which was actually the year he died. He had been out of the Burrito Brothers for almost 3 years, 2.5 years, and it had already changed hands so much that at that point in time, there was a version of the Flying Burrito Brothers led by Rick Roberts, and the rest of the band was essentially the guys who became Country Gazette, and they made an album, they toured Europe, and so this interviewer asked Graham, what do you think of the Burrito Brothers still going without even any of the original members? And Graham's answer was just golden. I think he said, I like it. I think the idea should go on whether I'm in it or anybody else. It's got to keep going. And that is how we carry the ball. We think, Graham himself endorsed that idea. So when you ask me about 10 years from now, I have to say that I can't regard my time in the band as being more important than anyone else's. I object to anyone thinking it isn't equal. You know what I mean? It's like they're all just chapters. But I hope when time comes and I'm not really up to doing it anymore, that there's still somebody doing it. And there probably will be. I had a lawyer friend of mine Randy Harris, who's a longtime Graham Parsons fan and involved in music, and he said, "Oh, Chris, there'll be Burrito Brothers long after you're dead and gone," and then chuckled.
So it's like passing.
There's actually. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, passing the torch and make it continue forever, in a sense.
Well, I hope so, and each new phase hopefully has a new conviction the same way we now do, that really care about it and bring their all to it, that I know we're doing right now. And I realized when I thought along those lines, there's actually been about 5 different guys I can think of who've played with the band in over somewhere at some point in time in the last 10 to 15 years, who are 40 years old or younger, and with a little luck, when it's time for us to pass on the torch, some of them will step up. I'd say we right now are about, kind of roughly about 15 years younger than the age group of the original band. And at this stage, 51 years later, that means we're entering older years. We're not young men. But yet, it's gone so long that we were essentially just boys when the first band started.
Right. It's like that. The people still like nostalgia and continuity, and they like names that they can adapt
yes,
to.
Yes, I've noticed that the Burrito Brothers have a very good reputation. It's funny how the general public doesn't know their songs. There's no smash hits in the Burrito Brothers history. There's no just huge, instantly recognizable songs that the entire public knows. There's a fan base that's really strong, and there's a sense that the group always was good, and it got a good reputation and made fine albums. And really, the main era all along was the main focus was albums. It wasn't chasing a hit single. I'd love it if we stumbled into one, but clearly our motivation here on this new album, The Notorious Burrito Brothers, was to make an album as a piece of art, as a work that has a start, a middle, a finish. It's an album. It's not just random songs.
You guys really did it well, and hopefully it does distribute a lot throughout the world. And right now,
well, I think it will. SFM Records is distributing it around the world. I'm convinced, and getting more convinced all the time, that it's the biggest, most major label type release for the Burrito Brothers in decades. They're really good people. The SFM, they're promoting it. It looks really good. They did care on the cover and everything, and the communication I've had with the president of that company, Brian Adams, is just heartwarming. He's a good guy, and so it's pretty special. It's like one guy once asked me if he said, how did he put it? Something about what do you say to the people who say that there's no one now in the group who was in an important lineup of the Burrito Brothers? And I find myself thinking, what in the world kind of crazy question is that? Who in the world is more important than any other, except when, going back to Graham Parsons here, that name looms large in this history of this band, and he's seen as a major figure and a legend, and one of the guys who, good-looking guy who died young and left a small but fabulous body of work. And so that's the real main figure. But he wasn't in the group but 2 albums. He was in the first 2 albums. The group has carried on ever since. Graham himself said he likes it going. And we're nothing less than the others who have carried the torch. In fact, I'm inclined to think that we're doing a slightly better job than most of them. And I also answered to that guy that here we are with a big record deal, the likes of which this group hasn't had a whole lot of for a number of years. And so we are important. This is an important lineup of the Burrito Brothers.
Chris, like that, I congratulate you for keeping the band going, and its continuity is gonna keep on looking good. And I like your enthusiasm in this. It's great.
Oh, thank you very much. And I appreciate your warmth too. It's just good to be able to talk to somebody who has an interest in this.
Well, when you talk to people that you know are associated with legends, as you just mentioned, it's always interesting to talk because everybody's a legend after that.
Yes, and I think in our own way, in our own small way, we help to keep the memory of Graham Parsons and Chris Hillman and Sneaky Pete and others who've come through the doors, so to speak, of the Burrito. We help keep their memory alive. It's better than letting it just kind of fade.
Well, just keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you back. It's the next album when you guys got it going.
Yeah, I hope a year from now we're doing another one. We certainly are capable of putting one out each year. That seems to be kind of a goal in our hearts. But things just have to take whatever the natural course of things
absolutely
turn out to be. Yeah. Right now, the world is on hold.
And it's on hold for a little while, it seems.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So I guess it's time for you to start writing a new album.
Well, we already have. This one was finished back in November, and it takes that long to get the wheels all together and everything figured out for a release of an album in the way that this is done. And so we don't just stop and say, well, now we're done, and wait and see. We've already been back to the drawing board, so to speak, where we come up with new material and think about what we'll do next time. And it feels good to just stay creative and interested.
Well, it's like that, Chris. You keep being creative, and we'll promote your music.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, you have a wonderful evening, and hopefully you take care in this big coronavirus stuff that we're seeing around the world right now. And
oh gosh, I hope the same for you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and for all the people who listen and check this out.
Absolutely. Well, you take care, Chris.
All right, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Good night.
Good night. Good night, Jason.